Chronic inflammation is one of the most common and overlooked causes of health issues in our modern world. You might not feel it at the moment, but there's a good chance that you have inflammation that's just smoldering like a fire in the forest inside your body right now. Toxins in our air, toxins in our water, off-gassing solvents that are coming out of our furniture, out of our carpets, things that can trigger chronic inflammation in our bodies. But you know what one of the biggest culprits is? That is, the good news is that we can actually lower inflammation in our body and we can control it with the right diet and lifestyle. So I'm going to tell you what to watch out for, how you can actually mitigate or minimize the amount of inflammation in your body, how do you counter it, and what are some of the foods that can be useful. Chronic inflammation is one of the most common and overlooked causes of health issues in our modern world. You might not feel it at the moment, but there's a good chance that you have inflammation that's just smoldering like a fire in the forest inside your body right now. Because even though we would like to think that we're living a normal life, if you live in the normal world, we're surrounded by forces and factors and things that can trigger chronic inflammation in our bodies. What am I talking about? I'm talking about toxins in our air, toxins in our water. I'm talking about off-gassing solvents that are coming out of our furniture, out of our carpets. I'm talking about microplastics that are found in our shampoo and our toothpaste and our food packaging. I'm talking about the ultraviolet radiation that comes from the sun, all right, and hits your skin. I'm also talking about the invisible radioactive radon that comes up from the earth beneath our feet and actually irradiates our body. These are all stressors you might not even know that you're being exposed to, but they're all around us, and all of these things can cause inflammation. But you know what one of the biggest culprits is? That is stress. I'm talking about stress in the world, the economy, wars, conflicts, other bad news that we hear about every single day, nonstop on our phones and our devices. If all these things sound familiar to you, the stress, the exposures, etc., you probably have some chronic inflammation going on. So in this video, I'm going to tell you what to watch out for, how you can actually mitigate or minimize the amount of inflammation in your body, how do you counter it, and what are some of the foods that can be useful. Because the good news is that we can actually lower inflammation in our body and we can control it with the right diet and lifestyle. So by the end of this video, you're going to have the tools to recognize the signs of inflammation in your body, understand its root causes, and know what you can do, the changes you can make to take control using your diet to turn down inflammation. So if you want to learn all this stuff, you got to watch to the end of the video. Are you ready? Let's go. I'm going to start by talking about the signs that you're going to be looking for that there's chronic inflammation going on in your body. The first sign is fatigue, right? Now, who isn't tired every now and then? But I'm talking about chronic fatigue. I'm talking about the fatigue that just, hits you out of the blue and you haven't been exercising and you've been getting enough sleep. Well, chronic inflammation causes fatigue. And it's not just the kind of tired you have after a long day. It's a deep, constant exhaustion. Doesn't seem to go away, doesn't really have an explanation. Doesn't matter how much you sleep. And researchers from the University of Washington, the School of Medicine, published a study that showed that chronic inflammation causes your mitochondria to malfunction. Let me explain this to you. Mitochondria is probably a term you might have heard about. It's actually in the news a lot now. Mitochondria are little organs inside our cells. So we get about 40 trillion cells inside our body. They're small, okay? Can't see them with a naked eye, but you can see them under the microscope. And inside each cell is a little battery, a little powerhouse. And the powerhouse is called the mitochondria. When I was in medical school, I remembered it by saying it's a mitochondria, all right? These mitochondria generate energy in our body. And when we have inflammation, the mitochondria, the energy generators, are uncompromised. It's kind of like a battery that's weak. So chronic inflammation weakens the mitochondria, which means that the powerhouses of your cell can't generate the energy that you need to be able to function properly. So what happens? You get tired. Very tired, fatigued. This is one of the signs of chronic inflammation that's going on if you actually are fatigued and you don't have an easy explanation for it. Okay, so how do you solve this problem? All right. Well, obviously, reducing inflammation is absolutely key. But here's a couple of little tricks that research has shown that can help support your mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell. All right. To give your body the energy it needs, you have to support those mitochondria. And foods that have anti-inflammatory properties can benefit your mitochondria. And the foods contain polyphenols, also called bioactives. And these polyphenols are things like anthocyanins, which you would actually find in blueberries and blackberries, or quercetin. You might find that in an onion or an apple. All right. And omega-3 fatty acids can also lower inflammation. These are the healthy fats that you would find in salmon and mackerel and shrimp and squid. Of course, you can actually take a supplement as well. These foods counter inflammation to help your body's mitochondria so they can actually generate more energy. All right. So first sign of chronic inflammation could be fatigue. And the explanation is that chronic inflammation damages your mitochondria. These are the powerhouses that generate energy. All right. So you want to actually lower inflammation to try to rescue the mitochondria so that they can give you the energy that you need. All right. Second thing to look for, telltale sign of chronic inflammation, is joint pain or joint swelling. All right. Now, if you're somebody who actually has a history of joint problems, you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about. But guess what? A lot of us go around with life, just kind of dealing with joint issues, stiffness, soreness, discomfort from time to time. All right. That can be normal, but if your joints are continuously uncomfortable, or if they're swelling, they're hurting all the time, very likely they're inflamed. And that inflammation in your joints could be a sign that there's other inflammation going on as well. It's just that in the joints, it's so pinpoint, you can actually feel it. And by the way, the joints themselves can be inflamed, for example, in arthritis, and that inflammation signals that can seep right out of the joints into your bloodstream and give you even more whole body inflammation. So joint pain actually can be a sign of chronic inflammation. Now, researchers have looked at this. Research from the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill looked at joints and chronic inflammation. All right. They found that if you have osteoarthritis, that's bone on bone grinding, wear and tear kind of arthritis, you actually get inflammation where the bone is grinding against the bone. Inflammation gathers because of irritation. Now you've got chronic inflammation that can seep out elsewhere in the body as well. All right. So what are some of the things that you can actually do to lower joint inflammation, which is also lowering inflammation elsewhere in your body? Well, guess what? The spice turmeric could be helpful because turmeric contains a bioactive called curcumin, and curcumin has been studied in joints to lower inflammation in joints. All right. It's a very powerful anti-inflammatory. Another food that you can actually have to lower inflammation in joint pain or joint discomfort are omega-3 fatty acids. These are the omega-3s you find in salmon or mackerel or anchovies or cod or hake or halibut. All right. You can find them in walnuts and tree nuts or chia seeds. All right. All of these sources, natural sources of omega-3s, can actually lower inflammation. By the way, I discovered recently that a spring plant called the fiddlehead, it's a wild forage plant, one of Mother Nature's top sources of natural omega-3s. Lowering inflammation from a joint perspective can actually be very beneficial for overall inflammation, and joint pain itself can be a sign you've got chronic inflammation running around in your body. Now here's the flip side. The flip side is, what are the foods that actually can make your joint inflammation worse? Well, it turns out ultra-processed foods can do that. All right. They could have highly processed vegetable oils. They could have trans fats. Both are inflammation triggers. They make inflammation rise, and they can actually have a lot of additives, artificial flavorings and colors, added sugar, preservatives. All those things can help to trigger inflammation as well. I'm not talking about, every now and then you sneak a couple of bites of some snack that you grew up on. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about regularly eating every single day, maybe a couple of times a day, some sort of ultra-processed food. That is actually a bad path to take but it's easy to actually cut down or cut out and swap it out with some of the foods that are naturally anti-inflammatory. Okay, what's another sign that you might have chronic inflammation? Turns out digestive issues. Your tummy isn't really comfortable, right? We've all had that experience. Well, if your abdominal area has discomfort, you're gassy, can't quite get comfortable, you've got some belly pain of some sort, it's just chronically there, these digestive issues can signify you've got chronic inflammation going on in your body, starting with your gut, all right? Gassiness, bloatiness, abdominal discomfort after a meal, or maybe not even after a meal, but between meals. Sometimes the signs are subtle, right? We tend to marginalize and not pay a lot of attention to how our gut feels, even though we're aware of it. But I'm telling you, pay attention to your gut. That gut contains microbiome, the healthy gut bacteria, very, very important for lowering inflammation. In fact, the link of gut health and inflammation was studied by researchers at the Imperial College in London, all right? And they looked at how changes in the gut microbiome are linked to low-grade chronic inflammation, all right? By the way, this kind of inflammation also is a setup and contributes to the formation of vascular disease. So you don't want to have a problem with your circulation. That's a setup. When your blood vessels are sick, the rest of your body has no chance of actually having optimal health. So you don't want to actually have inflammation that can damage your circulation, your vascular system. The other thing that chronic inflammation can do is contribute to the development of type 2 diabetes, and you definitely don't want to actually do that. You want good gut health to be able to actually lower inflammation, to be able to help steer you away from some of these chronic diseases. Nurturing gut health is very important. Restoring your gut health through diet and lifestyle. You can actually take probiotics that can actually be helpful as well. Let your gut bacteria help to heal your body and turn down inflammation. So, what are some of the practical tips that I can give you on gut health and lowering inflammation? Well, focus on foods that are prebiotic or probiotic. Let me explain to you what that means. Foods that are prebiotic, that means foods with polyphenols, for example, have a powerful effect by helping to feed your gut bacteria and make them feel better, function better. And you can actually get a lot of these prebiotic polyphenol-rich foods in foods like berries, strawberries, raspberries, blackberries, blueberries. You can get it in leafy greens, all right, which have dietary fiber. Carrots, stone fruit, peaches, plums, anything with a little pit in it, apricots. And you want to eat foods that have dietary fiber. The dietary fiber can work along with the polyphenols your gut bacteria particularly love. And again, well-fed bacteria, you might have heard me say this before, release short-chain fatty acids. These are metabolites from the fiber, and the short-chain fatty acids come out from the bacteria, which are in your gut. They diffuse into the bloodstream, they circulate everywhere, and guess what? These short-chain fatty acids, SCAFAs, actually lowers inflammation. And by the way, don't forget about fermented food, because eating fermented food can also benefit your gut bacteria by adding healthy bacteria to your system. What are some of the foods that are probiotic? Yogurt, kefir, kimchi, sauerkraut. These are just a few of the foods that have actually, like in many old cultures, ancient cultures, people have been using these for centuries to improve gut health. Now, I also want to tell you want to avoid some of the foods that can hurt gut health, because when you damage your gut health, guess what? Inflammation starts to rise, goes through the roof. What are some of those foods you want to cut down or cut out? Well, ultra-processed foods, all right? Artificial additives, coloring, flavoring, all right? Preservatives, sweeteners, artificial sweeteners. Turns out that even though the research is still early days, many of these artificial sweeteners, like sorbitol, aspartame, looks like they hurt the gut microbiome as well. Not what you want to do, all right? I'd avoid it. All of these things that hurt our gut microbiome actually makes inflammation rise in our body, and we might feel them in our joints or elsewhere, or our gut. Now that you know that there are many subtle signs of chronic inflammation, fatigue, joint pain, belly discomfort, all right? These are the things you probably experienced before. All right, and I'm just telling you, most likely, if you're watching this video and you're living planet Earth in today's world in a major city, you're probably dealing with a little bit of chronic inflammation that's inside you right now. So cut down on those ultra-processed foods. Try to avoid those toxic exposures in your home and when you're going outdoors. All right. Good sleep is also important for lowering inflammation, because when you actually have poor quality sleep, guess what? Your inflammation levels are going to rise. So lots of things that you can do, small, meaningful changes with your diet and lifestyle that can reduce inflammation and improve your overall health. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Got a lot more evidence-based health information to give you. Don't forget to share this video if you know somebody, whether it's a friend or a family member that you think can benefit. I got a lot more videos coming down the pike to share with you, so I will catch you on the next video. Dr. Lee out. Hey, if you like that video, then you're gonna love this one. Check it out.